All right, now we are here inside the boat. I came through this waterproof hatch here, and we've also now added some extra insulation here just in preparation for hopefully spending the winter in Greenland. So we have panels like this throughout the boat. But let's get to the technical things. So this is not an interior tour. I have a separate interior tour posted up on YouTube. On this tour we're gonna concentrate on the technical stuff. I'm wearing my Raymarine shirt because we have worked together with Raymarine for a long time, and that's why the hoodie is also, you know, it's seen better days, but it's just to show you that it's been a long collaboration. So some of the special things that we have here inside the boat. So this is our Raymarine Axiom screen, and we are currently in a harbor, and this is showing a view from our masthead camera. And we have a Raymarine Alpha screen. This is the new sailing screen from Raymarine, and it's super bright and super good contrast. So this one you would normally mount outside. We are now testing it inside. So what's really cool about these screens and the way we've designed this system is that you can turn them in each direction. So if you are, say, resting here on one of our pilot berths, you can see the screens from both of the berths. And then if you are cooking in the galley, let's say you are on watch, but you need to cook something really quick, you're sailing offshore, you can cook there and you can keep an eye on the screens. To complement these screens, we of course have another Axiom screen outside, coupled together with a couple of instrument screens, and all of this together with our Quantum 2 radar, and then a VHF and an AIS, and most importantly of all, a good electric autopilot. We have the Raymarine linear drive unit, which is extremely reliable. That's what I consider like a basic electronics package. You know, I have spent a lot of time navigating with just paper charts and a compass. When I started sailing, I sailed a lot in the Finnish archipelago with just the paper charts and a compass. But technical advancements are here, and I'm gonna be honest, when we are sailing in like really rough conditions and new areas and demanding areas, then I will take all of the technical advantage that I can get. Okay, let's take a look at what powers all of this stuff, because we have something special going on there. For that, we're gonna have to go into our sleeping cabin here. Okay, I'm sitting here in our sleeping cabin together with a snowboard and skis and an ice chisel and our battery bank down here. So this is 500 amp hours of lithium iron phosphate batteries, and they are wired in parallel and equal length wires going to bus bars. That's the positive bus bar, that's the negative bus bar. I've used just a thick piece of plastic to clamp them down. They're clamped down with these tie rods that are connected directly to the hull. There is an attachment point that has been welded onto the hull, and we had that made when we were first doing the refit in Napa, California. Now let's teleport back to the main cabin to take a look at how the power is distributed. Okay, we are now in the back saloon, and this is where the magic happens when it comes to the electricity. So if I just need to inspect things, I can do this. I can look at most of the main electrical stuff, but if I really want to do something, then I just made this kind of a modification here that you can release the backrests, and the backrests actually come off completely, and here we go. The main electric switches work a little bit different on this boat than on most other boats. So you see these two big red wires coming to this switch. This is where I can choose to use either the AGM battery that we have under this bench here, that is kind of our reserve bank, or the lithium bank. And now we are using the lithium bank, and then this is to disconnect the ground wire, the negative wire as well. And that is because everything that we have here, all of the switches are double pole. And the reason that we have double pole switches is kind of complicated, the whole story, but the short version of it is that we just want to block off any potential paths for stray currents, because we have an aluminum boat, so we really want to make sure that we don't have any electrical problems. That's why all of the switches, including the main panel and the sub panels, everything is double pole. You will see more soon. So if I flip this over to AGM, then the AGM battery is going to power all of these things, you know, all of our DC panels and inverter and so on. And it will also get power from the solar panels and our charger, shore power charger and so on. The reason that we did it like this is that there's been a lot of talk about the lithium bank possibly, you know, running into this kind of a blackout event where the BMS, or the controlling system of the lithium battery, suddenly decides that it has had enough, because it is kind of like a small computer controlling the whole thing. So now if something like that were to happen, we could just quickly turn the boat into something that runs off the AGM battery all the time. So far during these 2 years we have never had to do that, but I guess it's good for the peace of mind. If we switch from this arrangement and we look at the engine switches, you will notice that we have the same thing here. We can turn on the engine by using either the AGM or the lithium bank. And yes, you can use the lithium bank for that, and the engine as well. It's double pole. We have switches for both the positive and negative. And the same for anchor winch. Here the positive switch is fuse at the same time, and here is the negative switch for that. So from here, if you follow the wires, it's quite easy to see what's happening with the electrical system. A lot of the wires, you know, I haven't hit them so well. They might not be so beautiful, but at least it's easy to run new wires and do work on the system. The way that we have wired the alternators, and sorry, here it's kind of a mess with the wires, but the way that we've wired the alternators is that there's two alternators on the engine, and one of them is always charging the AGM battery just to make sure that it's always full, and then the bigger alternator is charging whichever bank is set here. And then we have this DC-DC charger, which we can use any which way. So we have a lot of redundancy when it comes to, let's say, an alternator breaking down or something. We can use the DC-DC charger to charge either of the battery banks. Of course, I have to change the settings on the charger a little bit, but it doesn't really take more than a minute. And then we can also use the main alternator to charge whichever of the banks that we want to. One thing that I've tried to do with the electrical stuff is that we have multiple electrical panels in the boat. We have 3 smaller or medium-sized panels. There's one there, and there's the main panel there, and so on. And that is to make things so that, you know, if we have stuff at the aft section of the boat, then it gets powered from this panel. So, you know, the wires from the battery just come to this switch, and then from this switch these bigger wires go to the aft DC panel, and then from the aft DC panel they go to whichever electronics and stuff we have in the aft of the boat. So if we open this up here, so we have the bus heater, the one that draws heating power from the engine coolant, and we have the autopilot, grey water pump, diesel heater, and our solar panels. And these are double pole DC breakers, and they've been working really well, and they're super easy and quick to install. The good thing about the Master Vault system is that everything's connected together in this very simple network. You just connect it together with these Ethernet cables, and you can see there's a green wire that goes throughout the whole boat, connects everything together, and that basically makes sure that the lithium batteries can talk to the whole system, and when the batteries are getting full, they can talk to the solar panel controller and to the alternator regulator and so on, and tell them to stop charging. And the good thing about these kind of batteries and this kind of a system is that we have 5 independent lithium batteries, and each of them has its own BMS, but they still talk with each other and with the whole system. So we are not relying on one BMS to control the whole battery bank. So if one of the batteries goes out for some reason, we still have 4 of the lithium batteries left. This area here in the back of the boat is what we call the wire chaos of the hell. And so this is where we get our AC power. So if we need alternating current power, then this is the only place to get it. And we simply just plug into here, and that is it. And this does just fine for us. We don't need anything more, and it is super simple, and it also gives you more peace of mind when it comes to power, because you really don't want to mess up with any of the AC stuff. You really need to make sure that all of that is in order. The Master Vault inverter here has a built-in GFCI, so basically this built-in safety function for electrical faults. The US version does that at least, so you don't need, this is on its own alone. It's safe to use it like this. So we don't have a system for getting shore power from the dock, really. And there's a good reason for that, because we simply never really get shore power from the dock. Even when we are moored to a dock, we never really get shore power. The docks here where we are sailing, they don't really offer it, or it's super expensive, or just really impractical. So we just use the inverter. So if we take a look at this main electrical panel, you will see that here on the gray water pump it says emergency. Go and switch valves under the sink in the heads compartment. So let's take a look at what that means. So I'm now here in our heads compartment, and I'll show you the special things that we have going on in here. Our boat, it does not have any traditional through hulls. All the through hulls have been welded shut. You can see one of them here. There used to be a through hull here connected to this sink here, so the water would drain down through the through hull. But now instead it drains into this manifold here, and here is a gray water pump, and basically there's just a switch here, and when I flick this, the pump will come on and drain the sink through a hose that runs to the stern of the boat above the waterline. So that's how we basically eliminate all of the through hulls in this boat and add some extra safety, especially in icy conditions. But we do have a couple other things with this system as well that are pretty clever. So right now we are pumping the water from the sink, but if I were to close this valve and open this valve, then now we'd be pumping the water from this shower drain pan here. There is drain under the toilet there. And if I wanted to pump the forward bilge, then I would open this valve here, and now we would have an extra emergency bilge pump. We of course do also have high capacity bilge pumps as well, but this is a neat functionality because these whale gulper pumps are really reliable. They munch through all kinds of literal crap if needed. You know, these can be used, as far as I know, also as black water pumps. So they are more reliable than the bilge pumps that have impellers. And I just really like this system. It's very simple. We did try to have, so there's this electric water sensor here, which we try to use for detect. This is supposed to detect if there's water in there, and then it turns on the gray water pump, so it would make the system automatic for the sink, but it didn't really work. So I just installed this switch, and now it works with the switch, and it's super simple, and it works the same way for the shower pan, which I think is a good system. This way you don't have any float switches or anything like that. Nothing can break, and you know, even if you were to have a shower here and have the pump running all the time, maybe you lose an amp or two of power because you don't have a float switch, but it doesn't matter, and these pumps can run dry safely. We have two of these, so one here in the forward section of the boat, and then one in the aft section of the boat, and the one in the aft empties the galley sink and also empties the aft bilge if needed. And here you might notice that I use these Wago wire connectors for some of the things, and those are not really waterproof at all, but I do use them in spaces where I know that there shouldn't be any water, and if they're not for critical functions, then I do use them quite a bit. The good thing about them is that the connections are very easy to check and inspect, and also really easy to change things around. Since we are here in the heads and this is a technical tour, a couple words about the dry toilet here that we have. So this is a desiccating composting toilet. This is an airhead. So I guess this is a topic that cannot be avoided. I'm not going to make this into a full-blown toilet tutorial. The dry toilet, or this desiccating toilet that we have, is mainly here because we wanted to eliminate the through hulls, and when we bought the boat, the septic tank system was not functioning properly, and I just didn't want to go through all of that trouble of you know, arranging that and installing a new septic tank and new hoses and so on. It's a really complicated system compared to what we have here. It separates the liquids from the solids, and then you have to empty the tanks every now and then. You add some composting media into the solid tank, which means that the stuff there doesn't really get that nasty, and then you have this air hose that ventilates the solids tank the whole time, so it blows out air and it keeps the smell down and so on. So this thing here, it cannot really break. That's the good thing about it, but you do have to deal with your own poop and pee every now and then because you need to empty the tanks. The problem with this system is that the capacity is not huge, so if you are more than 2 persons on the boat all the time, I cannot recommend this. If you are 2 persons living full time on the boat, then you are, in my opinion, at the maximum capacity. Okay, let's go forward and look a little bit at other things that we have going on to eliminate the through hulls and to kind of make the boat a little bit safer. So here in the forward section of the boat, in the bilge, I have taken out floor, and this is where we have our transducer. So these are just transducers that have been mounted in a completely normal way, but they are mounted inside a waterproof cylinder. So I'll just show you here. This one, I took the bolts off, so the lid lifts off. So here is the transducer in there, so if this were to break or anything, it wouldn't matter because it's inside this waterproof thing here. So that's the whole idea behind this, and I really like this system as well. And yes, we do store some food here as well because it's nice and cool. We do have one seawater intake for the whole boat, and that is in the saloon, so let's go and take a look at that while we are talking about plumbing and water. So here in the main saloon we have our seawater intake, so I'm now sitting opposite of where the electrical stuff is. So we kind of try to have all of our plumbing and hoses, or as much of them, running on the starboard side of the boat, and then as much of the electrical stuff running on the port side of the boat as possible. So this is where we get all of our seawater, and it is the only hole that we have in the hull except for, you know, the rudder shaft and the propeller shaft. So this pipe here is welded to the hull, and it's a thick wall aluminum pipe, and it comes to a big valve which is right now closed because we're not using seawater, and it comes to the seawater filter, which of course can be opened and cleaned easily from here. And if the pipe gets clogged, you know, we can just push a metal stick through here to clean it. Has never happened yet, but it's going to happen at some point. And then, you know, the seawater goes into this small manifold. There's only 2 hoses going out of here. This one goes to the engine, and then this one goes to the galley seawater tap. So it's a very simple system, and there is actually a check valve here so that the engine cannot accidentally start drawing water and eventually air through the galley seawater pump. There's just a foot pump there. So that's it. That's everything that we need for seawater. So while we are here, let's talk about the engine and our diesel system, because the engine is now in front of me under the table. So our diesel system consists of the main diesel tank, which is under the galley. Basically we have 100 gallons of diesel there so located centrally under the galley section or the mid section of the boat, and you can lift the floorboards up, and there's really good access to some access hatches, so you can inspect and clean the tank. And then from there the diesel is pumped into this day tank, and I've talked about this day tank earlier also in one of the videos, but I've made some additions to the system since then, so let's go through this just once more. So what's happening here is that the diesel comes from the main tank through this hose and goes through 2 of these Raycor filters. You can see there's a little bit of water here in the filters, and it goes then to the electric pump. So the electric pump sucks the diesel through the filters, and that's important because if the electric pump is placed between the main tank and the filters, then when the pump runs, it's going to emulsify the diesel, and the filters are going to have harder time separating water and so on. So you need to have the pump placed after the filters, and then after the electric pump, the diesel goes either into the day tank, which is then what the engine and our heating systems use, or if you flick this valve up, then it goes back to the main tank, which means that you are circulating the diesel and you are effectively polishing and cleaning it. And here, if we open this up, you can see a couple other things that I've added. So I have now added this system, this 3-way valve here, and right now if the 3-way valve is like this, then the fuel that the diesel pump is sucking is coming from the main tank. But if I change the valve like this, then we are actually sucking fuel through this tube here. Right now we are actually using it to empty some jerry cans, so we can simply run the hose through the window here, and then we can use the electric pump to empty the jugs into the main tank, which is really nice because the diesel will run through these filters before getting into the main tank. And this hose, it has at the end of it a detachable section and a valve. So when you close the valve and take the detachable section out, you're only gonna need to bring in the clean portion of the hose. So all of this stuff, it never gets into contact with diesel. There's diesel inside of it, but there's a valve at the other end, so the diesel cannot leak out. The good thing about the main tank is that it's above the engine and the reflex diesel stove, so both of those get gravity fed diesel, and that means that we have less chance for fuel leaks. Let's have a quick look at the engine. It's right under here, so we can lift this up, and there you have access to the engine. If you take this table out, you have really good access, but even like this you can, you know, check oil, change oil and things like that. It's a very basic system. I've only added one alternator here, so we have two small alternators. I think that's a good system because then you can easily carry spares and they are not super expensive. Here I've added valves now recently to the coolant hoses. So these coolant hoses go to our water heater and our bus heater, which draws heat from the coolant. I have a separate video on that. I'll link that here, but now we have these valves here. So if, let's say, the water heater breaks, we can just close these valves and the engine coolant loop will not be affected. Oh yeah, maybe this thing, I'll show it to you as well. This is kind of a MacGyver thing, but it does work really well. So we have added a valve between the air filter and the air intake. So it's just a normal ball valve, and there is a piece of red line that runs here. I should mark this better, but if I pull here, I'm gonna pull here and I'm gonna show you what it does. So if I pull here, it's gonna block the air intake of the engine. And this is just a really like an additional safety measure, kind of an overkill measure to make sure that we don't fall victims to diesel engine runaway, which basically would mean that, you know, if the oil pan gets flooded with diesel, or if the engine somehow manages to start consuming starts consuming oil for its fuel, then it's gonna start running at really high RPMs and you cannot stop it without blocking the air intake. It's a very rare situation, but we are a little bit more susceptible to it because we have this day tank above the engine. So there is a possibility that if the engine lift pump diaphragm fails, then diesel can get into the oil chamber and flood it. It's a very, very small chance. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but now we can just pull the valve and block the air intake. And you can just use the valve to stop the engine in case let's say in case the solenoid to stop the engine, if it stops working, you can just pull the valve. I've tried it a few times and it stops the engine immediately. I just realized there's one thing that I haven't talked about at all, and that would be interesting for a lot of you that are maybe not so familiar with these type of centerboard boats, and we will reveal it by opening up this floor hatch here. So this is where on a normal sailboat you would expect to see the deepest part of the bilge, but instead on our boat you will just see a flat aluminum plate, and inside this plate is going to be our ballast, and our ballast is lead encased in resin, and it's completely sealed inside this welded aluminum case. And if you look here, inside this box is going to be our centerboard, and that one does not contain any ballast at all. So if we open this here, we can see our centerboard in here. This is just an inspection hatch with a clear polycarbonate glass. So it's a little bit hard for you to see, but that white and green line is the one that we use to pull the centerboard up, so it swings back like this, and it is now almost in the uppermost position. And you can remove this hatch to, you know, do maintenance on it. Maybe you need to switch the line or so on. And then back here, this one is the centerboard pin behind it. So if you open it, there's going to be an aluminum access plate with an O-ring, and that is the pin that the centerboard pivots on. I'm not gonna do a full-on comparison to other types of sailboats in this video because that would take just way too much time. I will just say that when it comes to boats that have some kind of a lifting or swing keel or centerboard arrangement, then this kind of an arrangement that we have on board Lumi is the one that I prefer. There are also systems where you have a ballasted keel that gets lifted up and down vertically with the help of a hydraulics or an electric winch or so on, and that requires much more, you know, mechanical stuff, and it's much more complicated than what we have here. And if that type of a keel gets damaged, you know, if you run into something at speed and bend things, then you might not be able to lift the keel anymore, and it's more prone to getting stuck. And this type of a thing that we have here, you know, if we run into something, the swing centerboard is just going to swing up, and there shouldn't be much damage to it. And even if there is, you know, the centerboard is quite light, it's pretty easy to manhandle. 3 or 4 persons can you know, lift it or handle it on the ground, and it doesn't affect the safety of this boat. You know, if we were to lose the centerboard or so on, it wouldn't really matter because the ballast is inside the boat. I think this system is just like, I really like the way that it's quite simple and really efficient. Anyway, let's look at the stove. A lot of you already know about it, but it's basically a diesel stove that does not consume any electricity, and yeah, it's just really good. We run it practically all the time except for right now. This one, it has a nice side window for viewing the flame, and if you open this here, you can see that there is a stainless steel water jacket that goes around the chamber, so you can use that to plug in some radiators. We currently don't have radiators, but we have the option of adding them. We've added like fire protection in the form of 2 steel plates or stainless steel plates. And this workmanship here might not be the best, but I made these on a dock during the winter with an angle grinder, so I call it pretty decent for that. These here are thermoelectric fans that turn on automatically when the stove is on. When this base gets hot, then they start turning. And the only thing that I don't like about this system is that we have this barometric damper here, and we have currently covered it because it does not really work. It doesn't really help. It looks like this, and it's supposed to make the draft better, and it's properly balanced and everything, but we found that in gusty weather it actually does not help. It actually lets the smoke get inside if there is a really big gust. Thank you so much for watching. I know that the videos are currently lagging behind the real time a little bit, and there is a good reason for that. Check that out behind me. Freaking huge icebergs. We are now at the north end of the Baffin Island at Nunavut in the Arctic, Canada, and we've been sailing the Northwest Passage from Alaska to Greenland. We are still in the middle of that. A hugely challenging and difficult trip that, you know, we've survived so far with some trouble. There will be a whole video series about that coming out this autumn, but that's basically been the reason why I haven't been able to edit videos right now, because I'm just so damn busy planning and surviving and sailing here. And that is also the reason that I am going to extend the limited edition print sale for 2 more weeks until the mid-September. Honestly, the reason that I'm extending the sale is that I just haven't been able to advertise and talk about the prints so much because I haven't been putting out videos and content. So I just want to give everyone a chance to have a look at the prints and one final chance to get one if you happen to find one that you like. I'll put a link somewhere here. So thanks everyone for watching. If you want to follow our Northwest Passage progress live, then check out my Instagram and the live tracking link down below in the description. There is live tracking available for everyone for the duration of this trip. See you all next time. Bye bye. And look at the iceberg. Alright, see you.